And that is the real problem, colleagues. Why there is such a problem in this crisis? Because member states are reluctant to transfer new sovereignty and powers to the European Union. And we all know that the only way out of this crisis is a new transfer of powers to the European Union and to the European institutions. Saying, yeah, that is not done. And then you are saying two phrases later, but we have to accept it because he is elected. No, it is not because he is elected that he can go against human values and the values of the United States of America. Even an elected president with a majority, and he has no majority of the popular vote in the US.
If you're following international news, you've probably seen Guy Verhofstadt on television or in the media at least once or twice. He's a very interesting political figure. On one hand, he constantly argues about nationalism. He points out how, in his opinion, nationalism has brought World War II in Europe, and if nationalism ever comes again, it's going to bring millions more of deaths.
European capacities, European capabilities to create a European Union that can really deliver, that can act rapidly, and that can act effectively. But certainly you have heard from many of maybe European friends that you have who are telling you, yeah, okay, that's a federalist idea. And in fact, the people in Europe doesn't like that. They don't want such a European, quote, superstate of 1% of the European GDP. Well, the opposite is true, because what people doesn't like is the European Union as it works today. They are very critical. That's the reason why we have this rise in populism and nationalism in Europe. By the way, populism and nationalism in Europe, we have a patent on that. And I think it's more the nationalist and populist in Europe that had influenced Trump than Trump has influenced our nationalist and populist. We have a long history with nationalism and populism. We got in the 19th and the 20th century more than 20 million deaths on the European territory because of populism.
So you can see the mindset of Guy Verhofstadt. He believes that the wise men in Europe know better. That if you listen to what the people want, if you listen to what the masses desire, that is populism. And populism brings about millions of deaths. And in order to avoid this, the European Union will need to be strengthened. He hates nationalism, but at the same time, he wants to promote the European Union's flags. He wants to promote the European Union's anthem. He surrounded the entire European Union Parliament with all the flags and all the European symbols. And he wants the European Union to have an army, to be able to, quote-unquote, respond faster. And he wants the people of Europe to have a European identity. In other words, he is one of the most nationalistic people that I know when it comes to the European Union, but he will not allow leaders of member states to promote their country's interests. Because in his mind, only the European Union's interests deserve promoting. And isn't it funny that he just happens to be at the leadership of the European Union? Now, if you listen to Guy Verhofstadt, you will notice that he criticizes Trump for not having the popular vote. He criticizes Hungary for the government being corrupt. And this would lead to the question, what is Guy Verhofstadt legitimacy? In other words, where does he get his power from? What is the democratic mandate that he's got? You see, Guy is a member of the European Parliament, and he is the European Parliament spokesperson on behalf of Brexit, meaning that he speaks for around 500 million European people, including myself, and yet I have never had the opportunity to vote for or against him. And it's very important to point this out, because the United Kingdom was the second biggest payer to the European Union, meaning if that we reach a no-deal Brexit, then other countries will have to pick up the burden. The European Union will suffer economically, and the question of whom to blame and whom to hold responsible for such a disaster should be a legitimate question. So in the case of Guy Verhofstadt, what I'm about to tell you is just typical European Union democracy. It is a hint of a vote here, a smattering of consent there, and overall it's just smoke and mirrors, enough to make the system appear democratic to a casual observer. But it's just a veneer of democracy, hiding a deeply authoritarian reality. Guy was never elected as an EMP. The Belgians do not elect individuals in the EP elections. They vote for political parties. Guy's political party is the Open Flemish Liberals and Democrats. The Open Flemish and Liberal Democrats got only 800,000 votes in the 2014 elections. Under the Belgian Electoral College system, this meant that the Open Flemish Liberals and Democrats got 3 EMPs out of 21. The Open Flemish Liberals and Democrats got 12.89% of the popular vote in the 2014 EP election. So in case you weren't paying attention to what I'm saying, the Open Flemish Liberals and Democrats got 12.89% of the popular vote in the 2014 Belgian election. UKIP got 12.6% of the popular vote in the 2015 United Kingdom general election. So the winners of the election in Belgium were the New Flemish Alliance, a center-right nationalist and separatist party who increased their shares of the vote by 300%. What I'm actually saying here is that Guy Verhofstadt is an EMP because his party got hammered in an election. Now, you will ask yourself the logical question: how does an EMP from a minority party that terribly lost the elections in his country got to speak on behalf of 500 million people in the European Parliament on the issue of Brexit? Normally, you might think, well, maybe the European parliamentaries, they put forward some candidates to talk on behalf of Brexit, people with different views and different ideologies, and there was a vote, and Guy Verhofstadt won. If you think something like that, you haven't been paying attention, because the process I'm about to outline is going to make anyone who cares about the democracy of Europe feel incredibly unsettled. Because you see, there was no vote. Guy was appointed by the Conference of the Presidents of the European Parliament. The conference. Now, the conference meets twice a month in private, behind closed doors, because they know that most of their decisions are incredibly unpopular. And they would not want the press or anyone to find out about their plans until it's usually too late. Something similar that happened with Article 11 and Article 13. If you guys remember, it came up in the press a couple of months before the initial vote. This is just a common tactic with the European Union Parliament. They always do this. And I can only think that the reason they do this is because they know that their decisions are incredibly and highly unpopular. So what they try to do is to keep them away from the public until it's too late for the public to protest or figure out what's going on. So the conference, which meets twice a month in private, and it's close to 8, yes, actually only 8 EMPs can attend the conference, which are the chairs of the 8 broad political groups into which the EP has organized itself. And you might ask, like, what groups? What Euro-parliamentary groups? I didn't vote for a group in the Euro-parliamentary elections. Well, yeah, you actually do, because the political parties from all member states have organized themselves into 8 broad political groups. And it is these 8 groups which operate in the European Parliament, not the political parties themselves. Each of these 8 groups has a quote-unquote president, and each of these 8 presidents attend the conference. Now, the reason they actually have these groups is very smart, is to make sure that the European parliamentaries don't follow national interests, and instead you're going to have like an ambiguous group that you have different members from different nations joining. Now, one of the 8 groups in the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe is called ALDE. The Belgian party is in ALDE. Guy is the unelected, obviously, president of ALDE. So Guy attends the conference. And do you see how voters are getting more and more distant? Do you see why Guy really doesn't care about any of the common plebs of Europe? Because he doesn't need them. He doesn't, like, there is no way for the Belgian people not to get Guy elected into the European Union. The only way this would happen is like if literally no one in Belgium would vote for his crazy ass. And as we can see, even when nationalist parties increase their votes by 300%, it's still enough for the Open Flemish Party to be able to send 3 MPs. And out of those 3 MPs, one is Guy. And when he actually gets into the European Parliament, he gets voted by the other European parliamentaries as the leader of ALDE, and then he is invited to the conference. Now, you might think, okay, so the conference, at least, happens in private, it's just 8 people, and they probably consider a range of candidates, and they hold an open vote in order to declare the winner. Of course not. Well, at least maybe they meet and they have a debate about the candidates. Obviously not. They don't even meet and they don't even have a vote. Guy met up with Martin Schulz informally. Martin Schulz is the president of the European parliamentary group called the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats. And 2 other groups' presidents joined them in a back room. They alone appointed Guy to speak for 500 million people with no vote at all. The presidents of the other political groups were informed of the appointment, and the announcement was made to the world that Guy was the European Parliament spokesperson on Brexit, an arch-federalist, an extremist, even by European Union standards, a fanatic basically, has become the European Parliament's Brexit spokesperson. And all you have to do is to look at Guy's timeline on Twitter today. He has tweeted that the European Parliament will refuse to approve any form of withdrawal agreement without the backstop in it. How the hell does he know? It's supposed to be a vote, but democracy never works properly in the European Union. Even the Parliament, the only quasi-democratic institute in the whole rotten union, is controlled, coordinated, and centrally managed by the political groups. Guy knows which way the European Parliament would vote because he and few of his buddies control the European Parliament. This man holds the interest and the well-being of 500 million people in his hands. He is a key player in a set of extremely important international negotiations, all because his fringe party in a small state lost an election, and because 3 other blokes decided he should be put in charge. Now try and think this from the point of view of the French agricultural worker or a German manufacturing worker. In what credible democratic sense does Guy speak for them? How the hell does he know whether they want a backstop or not? Try to follow the democratic chain. There is no democratic chain. Guy does not care about these people because he does not get his power from them. What Guy cares about is pleasing the other people that he meets in these backroom deals. Now, if you cannot follow the democratic links in the chain from the people to the representatives, then it's clearly not a democracy. If you cannot comprehend or even ascertain the process by which the representative obtained his power, then it is not a democracy. If you cannot conceive of a possible democratic method by which the representative can be removed, censored, or otherwise controlled by the electorate, it is not a democracy. What is a Spanish worker supposed to do to replace Guy? Where should he start? Who does he protest to? How can I say that I disagree with Guy? What process do I have in order to remove him from power and remove him from speaking with me? None whatsoever. So I would like to thank Twitter user LBS Protect who did the research. And I would like to point out that if you take any of the big European Union key players and you try to unravel where their power comes from, you will be astonished. Every single time that you get this illusion of democracy. But as you're digging and digging, you find out that there really isn't any. And what I'm really upset is that I see so many Romanians that really love the European Union to the point where they go on a street and they wrap a flag around them. They wrap the EU flag around them, and they go to protests and they wave it. And it's fine to love the European Union, don't get me wrong. If that's their opinion, then it's perfectly acceptable. But what is not acceptable is that they do not know how the European Union functions. Asking them very simple, basic questions like what is the role of the EU Parliament? How does the EU President get elected? They will not know the simplest questions. The only way you can make a person really become a European Union skeptic is to tell them about how the EU functions. Thank you for listening to this video. If you like my content, please subscribe. Don't forget that you have the possibility to help me out by donating. And if you don't like the content, don't hold back. Tell me why in the comments section. Looking forward to reading from you guys.